How Australia succeeded in lowering COVID-19 cases to near zero. You remember the whole big show that happened in Australia? Didn't it seem strange? I mean, that Melbourne, Victoria, the province of Victoria, was singled out throughout the world, that somehow totalitarianism was necessary. You remember Daniel Andrews and how he locked everybody in their homes basically, and I think you were allowed to leave for 1 hour a day. You couldn't go past 5 kilometers. They put drones in the sky. They were monitoring everyone. They were busting people on the streets. You had cops choking people or slamming people and stuff. Some of that was theatrics, but nonetheless, everybody was shocked, I think, or most people were shocked. Most people that care and have empathy and like freedom and stuff like that, they were shocked by how totalitarian, right, the whole Australian approach was, since in the province of Melbourne, comparatively to, say, Quebecistan, where I am, the cases were very low. And they were in the hundreds when they started doing this. I mean, it was the low, I think it was like 200 or something like that, cases in quotation marks, of course. But nonetheless, totalitarianism was the answer. And Daniel Andrews came forth and basically said, we are going to take away all your rights, and we're going to monitor everything that you do, and we're going to force you to stay inside all day. And people were locked into their apartment complexes, and people were being arrested for going out to get exercise or go on the beach and stuff like that. So you remember all that, right? And I was saying, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Remember I talked about Sweden as well. I said, pay attention, pay attention. Watch how the narrative plays out. They think, well, what are we going to say? You're going to say, oh, they're so clever, right? I mean, when they have all the money and all the corporations and apparently all the governments, and they control the social media and all that. Like, how clever do you have to be, really? I mean, you have to be all that clever? But nonetheless, I warned people. I said, watch what happens. They're going to use these places as examples. I also mentioned this right at the beginning when North Korea, what's the difference these days? South Korea was, as well as China and several other Asian nations, were doing the exact same thing, where they were like, they were, we're going to lock down completely, lockstep, and right according to the Rockefeller document, of course, which the lockstep, right, which they predicted this all would play out this way, right? It's funny how that works. But they predicted that, yes, it would be more successful in the Asian countries where a more authoritarian sort of government or governance is more a complete authoritarian, let's be honest, in cases like China and whatnot. So they were successful and again, I don't mean to slam whole groups of people or whole nations. But we did have this play out in places like South Korea, where there was just everybody gave up their rights. There was only, if you remember, we went deep into this, there was one sort of religious cult that broke the rules, and they were all coming together, and so that was a big psyop because, of course, all those people were arrested and they had to bust that up. But they had to use that as an excuse. So look at the headline here, how Australia succeeded in lowering COVID-19 cases to near zero. You don't even need to read more, because this is the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation here, the Rainbow Unicorn Land, which is publicly financed by Canadian taxpayers, wants to turn kids into trannies. And look what the top story here is: totalitarianism is the way to go, basically. And I predicted that this is exactly what they'll say. They'll say, look at the nations that didn't. Now you see Sweden. Now you see other provinces in Canada, for instance, Alberta, British Columbia, and even the Maritimes, and even none of it. You thought none of it would have none of it, sort of thing. And they went to the extreme. So like in Nunavut, for instance, you weren't allowed, even if you were a citizen of Nunavut, you weren't allowed to come back into Nunavut unless you were quarantined for 2 weeks isolated in a hotel. Like, they were sticking their citizens in these detention centers, which you could politely call hotels, but they weren't allowed to leave their rooms and stuff like that, right? And they had to have food brought to them, I guess, with somebody in a hazmat suit or whatever. insanity. So here we are. And now they're going to say, well, look, Australia went to the extremes and it worked. You knew this was going to come. You know that when Daniel Andrews was so confident in the way that they were imposing their totalitarianism, that there had to be a storyline that was already laid out, sort of thing. Like, don't worry, Daniel, we'll have you there in, Victoria, and we'll use that around the world. It'll shock people, and people will be, oh my gosh, that's so evil what the government is doing. But what will happen is your area will clear out. You'll be the first to be playing beach volleyball, and the rest of the world will look on and envy, and then they'll say, why did we impose totalitarianism? I hope I'm making myself abundantly clear, because this is the script that our globalist coup d'etat is giving us here, and they want us to obey. Obey. Beyonce, bay good. Obey. Obey good. Obey good. That's what they want. So they show you this. When infections surged in July, restrictions were draconian and immediate in some regions. And then they got Australia crushes COVID-19 second wave with aggressive lockdowns. And then they show you beach volleyball. They hate our freedoms. Yeah, they hate our freedoms. The globalist coup d'etat that is behind this whole thing, they hate our freedoms. They hate our freedoms. Look, they told you on the Economist that, yeah, you know what, freedom was all right, but now we're going to have big government control everything, so we're going to put a leash around every single citizen, and we're going to watch you like hawks, and from now on, when we say jump, you'll say how high. And this is exactly what I predicted, exactly to a T what I predicted, that they would use this as an example, and they say, look, they went just like they did in South Korea, just like they did in China, and they said, well, look, they came out of it because everyone did what they're told. Isn't it funny, though? We have no choice but to do what we're told. So in Rainbow Unicorn Land, everybody's been muzzled. I mean, you can't go into a building. They won't let you in. You know that you can't go shopping, you can't go anywhere, and they force you to social distance, and they force you to comply, and yet even because of all of that, nothing has worked. But they'll blame it on the people, of course, which they do every day, that don't comply, or the people that like freedoms, because they hate our freedoms. That's all it is. They hate our freedoms. When George W. Bush said that, he meant us. He was saying, we hate your freedoms. That's why we need to do this thing, have the 9/11, take away all your rights, or impose the Patriot Act and all these things, and incrementally just get you accustomed to a police state. So unlike other nations, including Canada, which aim to maintain new infections at a level that won't overwhelm the medical system, Australia set out to virtually eliminate the virus from its shores. When Australia was hit with a surge of COVID-19 cases in late July, just weeks after declaring victory against the first wave, it prompted one of the world's longest lockdowns in Melbourne, for example, closing virtually everything that wasn't a grocery store or a hospital for nearly 4 months. In many cities, roadblocks were established to ensure people stayed at home. Even when the restrictions were erased, there was a nightly curfew. Does that ring a bell? Ding, 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 California? How about your American Psycho? Yeah, Gavin Newsom. Oh, he just loves. Gavin Newsom just hates our freedoms. He really hates them. So yeah, closing virtually everything that wasn't a grocery store and all that. And then in many cities, roadblocks were established and to ensure people stayed home. Even when restrictions were eased in a nightly curfew and in the initial lockdown, people weren't allowed to be more than 5 kilometers away from home. And many places have moved that well beyond that. Some places it's been meters, like 500 meters or something like that. I think it was, I know Moscow and a few others, but there have been several that it's even less. It's like a kilometer or it's like 500 meters that you're allowed to go out. How magnanimous. Governments, you just got to love them. So break a rule and you could face a fine of course, $1,300. School at first had an extended holiday break, and then education was moved in many places entirely online. Restrictions were sometimes so draconian that in some areas it was illegal to walk your dog even on your own street. Illegal to walk your dog. Illegal? Wait a second. For it to be illegal, it has to be legislated. You see, these are rules. They're not legislation because they're unconstitutional. They have not gone through the proper sort of process of becoming legislation, but that's the big trick, right? The rules are for the fools, right, Mr. What's his name? Nipple clamps there. That sick, disgusting puke. Of course, Mr. Cuomo, the governor, not to be mistaken with his brother Fredo, the propagandist, of course, on CNN. They are not rules that are against you. They are rules for you. I love that. So let's just think about that. They are not rules that are against you, although every rule is against you because it prohibits your freedom. It prohibits your ability to work. It prohibits your ability to go to school, do all the things, go to the hairdresser, buy food, walk freely, go to the beach, do everything. Just live, basically. See, the trick, of course, is staying apart keeps us together. Staying apart keeps us together. This is called doublespeak. It is right out of 1984. In fact, George Orwell is blushing at how effective these scumbags have been. Staying apart keeps us together. It's just the most insane thing ever. I freaked out when they first released that slogan. And that's been the slogan for, of course, Melbourne and Victoria. Staying apart keeps us together. So they are not rules that are against you. They are rules for you. See, and there at least he's admitting that they're rules. Rules. Rules are for fools. Repeat after me. Rules are for fools. They think that you're fools because they are breaking all the laws to enforce these draconian, totalitarian sort of rules, and they believe that you are so stupid that you'll comply. The rules are for the fools. So the Premier of Victoria explained in a public statement on November the 8th, reminding people about the goal of the restrictions. It's about your safety, your job, your community, your family, your state. So ironic, too. It's like all those things are the things that you took away from us. But that's what it's about. You see, staying apart keeps us together. It's that simple. Again, I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away. I mean, you read these things, like you wonder, of course, why did they get us to read 1984 and Animal Farm and all these books, right? Isn't it like, oh, this is supposed to keep us from ever going that way? And then all of a sudden, guess what? Hey, 1984, it's not really fiction, is it? In fact, as I said, George Orwell is blushing. Or the Ministry of Love is envious. They're like, we didn't think of that. What? Drones? Surveillance? The thermometer checks to the head? One-way walking down the street, which is all over Montreal, by the way, and has been. One way in the shopping malls, 6 feet apart. It's the rule of 6, of course, everywhere. Boris Johnson loves that, of course. And then you see the checkpoints that they show. Australians arriving from outside the country had to apply to return. There were daily limits, and every one of them was required to quarantine in a government-designated hotel, sometimes guarded by soldiers, a.k.a. Nunavut. They did the exact same thing. They know in Rainbow Unicorn Land or the United States and or several other countries where freedom, people still cherish it and live by it, that it would be a hard sell. So they chose Victoria for whatever reasons. They chose Victoria, and they chose Nunavut, and they chose a bunch of other places. Obviously, South Korea and China, that's a given, right? Because it's I'm not going to say South Korea as much as China, but, more authoritative regimes, right? Where government says jump and you say how high type of thing. Whereas the United States, it's like, man, this is against my constitutional rights, which is why Americans are honestly the last bastion of hope in this globalist coup d'etat, because they understand how important their constitutional rights are. In fact, while the rest of the world is mocking them through their mockingbird media that has convinced them that Americans are the butt of all jokes and they're the example of idiocy and ignorance, and they love guns and they love to kill people and they love to do this and that. This is what your mind control, the New World Order, programs the rest of the world into, so that they look at the United States and they say, those are terrible people. Why can't they just, oh, they're so selfish. You're so selfish. You want to breathe freely. I mean, seriously? You think I can't breathe? Look, you think that you should be able to work your job for 8 or 10 hours a day and breathe freely. No. You see, my great-grandparents or my grandparents lived through the Holocaust, so you don't even know what tyranny is. You have no right to speak up. That's the rhetoric that you'll get. So, yeah, South Australia Premier Stephen Marshall put it bluntly in public briefing on November the 7th. There is no second chance to stop a second wave. And you know, if you have been listening from the beginning of this big, huge scandemic, I had been talking about the waves. In fact, I've been talking about the waves for many, many years, because I say the wave symbolism is always being used. And I said, from the beginning of this, I say, pay attention to the waves. I was showing segments on CNN where they're saying it comes in waves, and it's like a tsunami of guilt and a tsunami of grief, and these waves keep hitting us. And the anchors would say, do you feel like it's waves of grief? And yes, it's like a tsunami, So like I was saying, pay attention to language, because they're using the wave symbolism. And they show it everywhere, right? The wave symbolism. In fact, there was this, I showed it, I think, maybe I didn't show it, but like months back, early this year, there was this incredible sort of three-dimensional display that they set up somewhere in, was it Australia? It might have been Australia. Somebody correct me if they know what I'm talking about. It was this massive three-dimensional sort of screen. So if you can picture a massive building with a huge sort of, it's like a window almost, like it looks like it's like an apartment window sort of thing, and it was this three-dimensional wave that looked so realistic, and it was I'm not gonna show that. I can't just say it because I gotta show you that. I'll just put incredible, because it's 3D wave on building. Right? See if we can find this and find out where it was. Yeah, check this out. So I caught this, May 13th. I caught this earlier this year. And we'll see if we can open this here. And just take a look. This is in, it doesn't even tell you where it is. It's somewhere in Asia. But check this out. This is what I'm referring to here. Look at this. Now, out of all the things that they would do, out of all the things that they would put up, so imagine how expensive this thing is. Look at how realistic it is. And it says Pyongyang. This is South Korea, I believe, because there's a sign here saying Pyongyang. So I'm assuming it's South Korea somewhere, maybe Seoul or something like that. But look at that. So you have this has got to be extremely expensive, right? To have this incredible wave, public media wave. And I imagine, since it is like it is an illusion, right? It's not really water in there. It's just really ultra high definition OLED crystal frickin' 8 billion K sort of display. But they could display anything in there. But they call it wave, and they put waves. And this is all part of your mind control, because a lot of the psychological programming comes from the notion of waves, so that you already accept it, like predictive programming, that you have already accepted that the next wave will be coming. And therefore, when the wave hits like a tsunami, and, well, I could show you that as well. I can just go back here and show you waves. If we put in waves just to see news, and right, second waves, council here's destination, frequency of sound waves. But if we put COVID, right, COVID, and we'll get it, there'll be gazillions. I mean, it goes back to the beginning, all the waves and second waves and everything, and how we're going to do that. But then if I did this too, if I said tsunami and then COVID, exact same thing. Next COVID wave will be like a tsunami. Next COVID wave will hit like a tsunami. So in India, I guess, maybe, Pakistan, places like that. Here's Rainbow Unicorn Land, globalist news, tsunami just out there. And this is just 3 days ago, 6 days ago, 2 weeks ago here. Edmonton warns of tsunami. Edmonton ICU doctor, right? Coronavirus, Belgium facing tsunami, Operation Tsunami. So again, just to reiterate, because I've shown this throughout, right? And I'm explaining to folks that this is how it works. This is how your mind control works. This is how they gaslight humanity, and that's what they're doing. They're gaslighting us, and they're taking away, or they're getting us used to their new normal. It's very, very devious what is going on. So yeah, no chance to stop a second wave. The approach has largely worked. The nation's recorded cases peaked at 739. So 739, again, compared to Montreal and Quebec, like we were having tens of thousands, according to them, cases. I don't even know. I mean, we're in one of the hot spots, right? One of the peak areas. But they didn't go the full Daniel Andrews here. They didn't do the full totalitarianism. People would have freaked out, of course. But maybe now, because now they can say. So again, the whole wave thing comes in because they're going to be able to say, oh, well, look, we have studied the data. And we looked at countries like South Korea, China, and Australia, and we particularly paid attention to how they dealt with the first wave and how they were successful. So it turns out that totalitarianism for the W, which you could say W waves, of course, but for the win for the NWO. It is coming at a cost of 1 million jobs nationwide and thousands of now failed business. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's just awesome. Millions of jobs. Who cares? Who needs to work, right? Who needs to... give us our Soylent Green. Give us our CERB. Give us our, what do you call it? Our free tampons. If you didn't catch that. And I'll report more on this on the big show on Friday. But Scotland has magnanimously given free tampons to women. Free contraceptives and tampons and whatever, right? And people are, they're cheering it on, saying, oh, this is so awesome. Woohoo! Yeah, we're so progressive. The first country to make something free. Nothing's free. You could say, well, maybe breathing fresh air used to be free, right? Well, they'll charge you for that before long. They'll ration that out. But I'm saying, like, what is free in life? How is it free? And the illusion of freedom, the illusion that, wow, getting something for free. And, of course, it's setting the table for the Great Reset, in which you'll own nothing, right? You'll have no privacy. Your dreams, your thoughts, everything will be recorded. You'll live in a sewer tube. You'll eat Soylent Green, but you'll be happy. Yeah, trust us, Bill Gates. You'll be happy.
Yeah, well, you see, people will be happy because they won't have to work for food, and we'll make sure that...
Oh, my arm. My hands are going everywhere when I'm doing that, my arms. And I actually hit the microphone. So you could just picture it. I have to, whenever I do the Bill Gates thing, I always have to move my arms around. Otherwise, I can't do it. You can't have a well-functioning economy with raging pandemic. It's not an economy versus lives, she told. So this is, yeah, I don't want to play because CBC hates my guts and they flag me, but, you can imagine. Dr. Nancy Baxter, never forget who these people are. And this is the University of Melbourne School of Population and Global Health. Would you trust somebody? Would you trust somebody from the University of Melbourne's School of Population and Global Health? I wonder, Dr. Nancy Baxter, what you learned while you're taking your courses at the Melbourne School of Population and Global Health. Wow. Actually, I'm going to play that. I'm going to take a chance here. Let's see. Hopefully it's...
So Victoria's the hardest hit state. At one point, our peak number of positive cases was
Purple.
725 per day. But we are now at 0 cases of community transmission for 3 weeks. So I think it's one of the few places in the world that's actually managed to suppress a real second wave. And that was because we had the world's longest lockdown.
Yeah!
We went back into a lockdown.
You scumbags!
To suppress the second wave. And it was a very hard lockdown. It was a very long lockdown.
That's how it works, and I'm gotta stop that now. What's going on? Did they change the page on me? Oh, they did. They're scumbags.
The garbage is being kept here.
Just shut up. Shut up. So yeah, so yeah, it only cost millions of jobs and thousands of now failed businesses. So that's all it costs. No big deal. Who cares? Who needs the economy? Who needs it? Who needs their businesses to be successful? Come on, screw that. Let's just lock everybody down so that we can stop people from... Oh, yeah, getting sick. That's it. Yeah, getting sick. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Why is it that all the people that turn up positive and all the celebrities have no symptoms? Why is it that almost everybody that tests positive is asymptomatic? I wonder. Could it have something to do with the tests themselves? The PCR test I'm referring to. Unbelievable. So listen to the rhetoric here. Baxter is a Canadian, really, who moved to Melbourne just before the city entered its first lockdown. She now worries about her friends in Canada. Why? You got to the hospitals? Why is there nobody in the hospitals? Why are they all empty? I don't understand. What are you worried about? Of course, it's a script where the approach to the pandemic has been very different. Hearing what's happening in Ontario is pretty shocking. It just seems like what's happening is public health officials are telling the government one thing. It's not what they want to hear, so they just kind of half change the policies to just basically admit defeat and say they're going to let the epidemic run wild in Ontario. Really? They've been muzzling everybody? They've been shutting down the entire restaurant industry. Miss Baxter is about to collapse, and many restaurants, probably thousands, have already collapsed, and many other businesses and gyms and all cafes and bars and everything. You've killed it all. I mean, never forget these people. If you get a chance, take a doctor and take them aside and ask them what they think about this. Ask them what they think about everybody else losing their jobs, and then doctors like Mr. Sharkowy there getting on and saying, I drove past a shopping mall the other day and I was so disgusted to see that the entire parking lot was full. So she was speaking before Ontario instituted a lockdown in much of Greater Toronto area on November 23rd, and yet now, as case counts are spiking, nowhere in Canada has government gone to the levels that Australia has done. There's your waves. Check it out. Wow, you cannot make this shit up. Australians have also broadly accepted the measures. Their image as Crocodile Dundee-like rule breakers has been shattered by widespread compliance with the world's toughest pandemic restrictions. Is that really the case, or is it more that most people absolutely detested the lockdowns and hated Daniel Andrews for doing it, and yet are silenced? What about the thousands of businesses that have failed, and what about the millions of people that have lost their jobs? Why are we not hearing from them, and why are we hearing from this shill who is quote-unquote Canadian but somehow works for the Melbourne School of Globalist Depopulation and Population Health? I mean, it's out of this world. So there's your wave symbolism. Sid Path, staying apart keeps us together. A man walks his dog near COVID-19 testing center at Bondi Beach, of all places. Because, of course, going to the beach, is prohibited because you might get COVID. You might spread COVID to the waves. The starfish and the freaking lobsters might get it. So because it's surrounded by water, it's a continent. Because it's surrounded by water, Australia has the ability to severely limit entry into the country. Canada, meanwhile, is highly reliant on commercial truck drivers to bring food and other goods from the United States, and they are among the essential workers exempt from quarantine requirements. Australia is unique in that we can really control who comes in and out of the country, says Jason Dutton. Really? Other countries can't control that? Oh, man. A chemistry professor in Melbourne and another Canadian transplant. We've gone about it the right way, going for the aggressive suppression to zero. Never forget who these people are.
Clearly, we've done
never
about it the right way, going for the aggressive suppression to zero. But on the other hand, I don't own a bar that's gone under, so I've kept my job. My wife has kept her job.
Well,
I think if we
at least he does that.
become out of work because of the restrictions, I probably have a different opinion on.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Opinion on what was right. The restrictions, I probably have a different opinion on what was right and what's. I probably have a different opinion.
And dupe it up, man. Dupe it up, you douchebag. Just dupe away. Oh my gosh, these people.
On what was right and what was wrong. Opinion on what was right and what was wrong.
I hope you guys pay for what you're a part of. That's what I hope. Every single one of you dupers. Dutton also suggests that the so-called pandemic fatigue hasn't taken the same form in Australia. It hasn't taken. Well, you lost 1 million people lost their jobs. You gonna tell me that they're not fatigued by all the crap that you've done? When the government came out and they mandated masks in the first week of August, there was 20 seconds of complaining, and then everyone emerged with a mask matched their shirt. Unbelievable, folks. So if the government tells you to jump off a bridge, is that what we should do? I mean, is that the message? Always, governments are never wrong. They've never been wrong. They've never, ever abused power. They never, ever manipulate their own populations. They never lie about anything, ever. No politician has ever lied, not even once. Oh, my God. I just can't believe this crap. Well, I'm not surprised at the same time, but now comes the big test. The restrictions have now eased, and the restaurants and bars long shuttered have reopened. The country is waiting to see if it will all lead to a new spike. There is hypersensitivity and widespread desire to quickly stamp out any reappearance of the virus. In the city of Adelaide, which was declared COVID-free in September, for example, a single cough at a hospital this month ended up triggering a 6-day circuit breaker lockdown. I want you to just stop whatever you're doing and just read this. A single cough at a hospital this month ended up triggering an immediate 6-day, they love their sixes, circuit breaker lockdown. A cough. A fucking cough. Pardon my French. South Australians will pause and create a 6-day circuit breaker. Rule of 6, of course. This is the tweet here. That will enable us to get ahead of the Parafield cluster. This means all non-essential workers must stay home and only leave for grocery. Non-essential workers, hey, your job isn't essential. You're feeding your family is not essential. You're paying your bills is not essential. You're getting fresh air is not essential. Your freedom is not essential. Your rights are non-existent, but, he'll keep you safer. An elderly woman in a hospital had been infected and was among 30 or so identified after extensive contact tracing effort. Thousands in the city were told to get a COVID-19 test, and there was a complete public shutdown in an attempt to crush the presence of the virus. As one Adelaide resident put it on local news crew, it makes sense, doesn't it? We don't want to end up like other parts of the world. David Common. David Common. David Common. And you wonder what the shillery in the comments section here, because when it suits their narrative, they allow comments, which is about 5% of the time on the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation. Why should you allow the citizens of Canada to comment on your own propaganda? Like, seriously, what kind of person are you? You think that you should be allowed to comment on the hideous propaganda that you actually pay for with your taxes? Why aren't you transitioning your child into an opposite sex or some nondescriptive identity? So we'll just go to what I do here I usually like the most active. It has come at the cost of millions of jobs nationwide and thousands of now failed businesses. But it was worth it, says Nancy Baker, who runs the University of Melbourne School of Population and Global Health. Well, what have we got here? But it won't affect her University of Melbourne School of Population and Global Health. There is one good person. And of course, what's going to happen is all these people are going to say, you're the problem. Without a doubt. So she does not get to have an opinion about a viral pandemic, but Mark does. And Mark wasn't on the CBC. Mark didn't appear in the article. He wrote, he pays his taxes, I assume, so he helps pay for this hideous propaganda, New World Order, globalist propaganda, which is Canadian Brainwashing Corporation. But somehow he's not allowed to voice his opinion, or I don't like his opinion, so I'm going to write crap about him. But yeah, you're going to get that. Jobs come back, dead people don't. Yeah, just take out the mallet. Where are the dead people? Oh yeah, the fake bullcrap that they dug up in Staten Island or whatever island that was off of New York City, where they were saying, oh, Hart Island, I think it was. Oh yeah, we're burying. There's too many dead. And it's like total bullcrap, totally debunked. Mexico, where they did the same scenario, or Iran, where they tried to pull that whole caper off as well, where they make these fake they get some bulldozers out and they say, we're putting all the bodies in there. Full of crap. Why are the hospitals empty? Why are all the nurses making TikTok videos? Go to your hospitals and film your hospitals. Show me different. Show me different. Because otherwise, everybody that's gone to the hospitals, there's nobody in there. And they're banning people from going in there, and they're banning people from filming anything. So, yeah. And how many of these people will die because they lost their business? And could you imagine if thousands of businesses go down, and say tens of thousands, say millions of businesses go down around the world? How much blood, sweat, and tears went into those businesses? They're all mom and pop businesses. That's what they are. They're not Amazon. They're not Microsoft. They're not Apple, right? They're not the New York Times. They're not the BBC or the CBC, which is publicly financed by Canadian taxpayers, wants to turn your kids into trannies. No. They're hardworking citizens who have lost likely everything and probably put years, if not decades, into some of those businesses to build up a clientele, to establish themselves. How many sleepless nights, how many times do they have to sacrifice just to get the business to work in the first place? And then, oh, well, too bad. Yeah, but you can start over again. But yeah, we can't bring back the dead. Can't bring the 97-year-old Abe Finkelstein that died tragically, and the whole family's mourning and can't get over the death, of course. But yeah, don't worry, you can bring back your business, even though you're broke and everything else. One of my patrons sent this to me. Now, I know Sky News is critiquing this heavily and have been, and good, that's good, but I think they are playing a role because they like to have control of the opposition because you know how it works. But we'll listen in here. 6 days shutdown.
Outbreak in South Australia, an extraordinary reaction today. You would have thought that South Australia was right on top of this outbreak given today's figures.
Today we have 2 new cases. Both are linked to the Parafield cluster. So to date there are 22 cases linked to that cluster.
So just 2 new cases today, just 22 infections in all, and almost all in one extended family in the distant northern suburbs of Adelaide. Yet, to deal with that, the government today announced a total lockdown of the whole state. From Cook near the West Australian border, out in the Nullarbor, to Renmark on the Murray near the Victorian border, or from the mines of Coober or even further north, Oodnadatta, right down to Mount Gambier. What, 1,300, 1,400 kilometres to the south. All in lockdown, a full lockdown for 6 days because one family in Parafield is sick.
Things that are being closed or shut down effective midnight tonight. All schools, except for children of essential workers and vulnerable children. Takeaway food will be shut.
And then you see keeping SA, South Australia, safe and strong. So 2 people, and you know how reliable those incredible. I mean, apple juice tastes, apple juice, of course, I don't know if you guys know this, but apple juice is testing positive for coronavirus now. And, of course, we know papayas and goats and everything tests positive. Everything that takes the test tests positive. Joe Rogan there, his little helper there, Jamie, the guy that's so amazing at doing Google searches, he got the Kobe. And he's like,
It only lasted for a day, but I couldn't taste anything.
yeah, I believe you. But look at what's going on. 6-day shutdown. 6-day shutdown. The rule of 6 feet. You have to stay 6 feet apart all the time. The 666 programming that goes into this. I mean, we're seeing absolute tyranny. Imagine this: 2 people get sick, and you shut down the entire province. And I have a bunch of listeners in South Australia who are always, and some of them came on the shows, and some of them were sending me messages saying, oh, thank God I'm in Adelaide, or I'm in a small part of Australia and we haven't been hit yet. And I said, damn, must scare you what's going on in Melbourne and elsewhere in Australia. And they're like, yeah, and hopefully it won't happen here because it's sparsely populated and whatnot. Well, now they shut down the whole thing because 2 people tested positive, along with, some apple juice and, a goat.
Universities will be closed. Pubs, cafes, coffee shops and food courts will be closed. Elective surgery, except for urgent operations and cancer treatment, will be closed.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All the surgeries closed, right? You see all these things, and again, how many people are going to die because they're not getting the attention? They can't get to the hospital, can't get the treatment, can't get the surgery. Of course.
Open inspections and auctions for real estate. We're also closing all outdoor sport or physical activity. The message is stay at home unless you are accessing essential services or you are an essential worker. Exercise will not be permitted outside of the home for 6 days.
Exercise will not be permitted outside of the home for 6 days. Who gives the government this power? They're supposed to serve us, not enslave us, people.
Period.
It seems an extraordinary overreaction. Shutting down some suburbs I can get, contact tracing, enforced quarantine, sure, I mean, that should actually be enough. But it seems that the South Australian Premier and the Chief Public Health Officer...
So he's saying contact tracing should be enough.
They're a spook. They don't want to end up like Victoria, locked down for months on end.
Contact tracing and testing, and you think that's where they come in, because they'll come in and they'll play because they have to have this. This is what I'm worrying about, the controlled opposition, is they know that people are going to freak out. They know that they have to have a voice for these people. Otherwise, somebody else, some organic sort of movement will rise up, and they can't allow that. And this is what we've seen. We've seen this with Dr. Erickson and the doctors, the frontline doctors, where they're like,
Wearing a mask is unhealthy. It's terrible for you. We don't think anybody should wear a mask, but we think that they should just expand testing and contact tracing, of course.
You see how the game is played. I hate to be right. I hate to be right. Like I do. I hate it. I wish I wasn't right about any of this crap. But I've been pretty bang on, and that scares me. because like I predicted a lot of this would unfold like this, and I've been talking about the waves since day one. Keeping South Australia safe and strong. Staying apart keeps us together, right?
I'm asking you to rise to the challenge again. As of midnight tonight, we need our community to pause for 6 days. A series of wide-ranging restrictions will be implemented to significantly reduce mobility in the community, to stop this spread, to stamp out this virus. This is about South Australia pausing so that we stay ahead of the virus. Our concern is that if we don't have this circuit breaker, that we will not stay ahead of this. There is no second chance to stop a second wave.
Second wave.
Now, there is another politician who thinks, like so many premiers, having people sick on their watch, he'll never be forgiven that. But driving them broke, that's okay. Maybe you can throw another few $1 billion of taxpayer money at it later, make it feel a little bit better. Meanwhile, you've got states like New South Wales, which have dealt with far worse outbreaks without shutting down. They're left protesting today that there is another way.
That's the whole thing. There is another way. The thing is, that's the whole thing, folks. This whole thing is a giant globalist coup d'etat. It's absolutely terrifying how this is all unfolding, folks, and I just hope that people realize... Look, I'll just say it. I said it a million times. I'll say it again. If they can waive your rights anytime they feel, you don't have rights. Do you understand? And I say, I don't care what is going on. I don't care. I don't care. World War III? I don't care. Right? Tsunami? I don't care. Mount Krakatoa is erupting. I don't give a damn. That's it. You either have rights or you don't. If the government can sweep them away at any moment, then you don't have rights. And they're banking on their rules and fooling you into thinking that's law, when they are the ones that are breaking the law, not us. Anyways, man, it makes me angry. Freaking hell, I get so angry. What are you going to do, right? That's me. So I hope you got something out of it. I know I'm going to say I hope you enjoyed it, but I mean, how is anybody going to enjoy this crap? But see where it's going. Ontario, Quebec, the rest of Canada, United States, England, UK, all over the world. You guys, everyone has to pay attention. We have people from all over the world listening to this. We all have to do the best that we can, as much as we can. Get this information out, share, warn people about tyranny, because before long, like, if they can just do this, there'll be no end to it. We had a cluster. Another cluster. 2 people got it. We shut down the whole city. They'll do this forever if we allow it. And then we'll have nothing left. We'll live in absolute tyranny. Our children will be mind-controlled, soulless slaves. And we'll all be living in a complete police state with absolutely no freedom even to walk down the street. It's already there. Anyways, if you can, please do come and support the work that I do. This is how I get paid, so it means the world to me. My Patreon link's in the description. There's no ads. There's no nothing because they don't allow anything. So if you can, that's hugely helpful. And be the change you want to see. Fight the good fight. Speak out against this. Always stand up for your rights, no matter what. No matter what. Stand up for your rights. Know your rights. Know your Constitution. And never forget who's responsible. Much love, folks. I'll see you guys all on the next one. Big show tomorrow night. The bone broth. The bone broth is coming, so I'm really looking forward to that. I already have a lot of material prepared for it. I've been working on it throughout the last couple of days. I'm working on a big music video as well, which is pretty disturbing what I'm putting together, but I think it's going to be powerful. So that hopefully I'm going to have that ready by Friday. And yeah, be the change you want to see. Stand up for your rights. Watch everything that they're doing. Go to your hospitals. Film your hospitals. Talk to doctors, nurses, everyone. Just stand up to this. You guys are the best. You guys are the hope that humanity needs. The Americans, their spirit of freedom can't be underestimated. So we need to stand together. Much love. See you guys all on the next one.